All right. So I just shared the good news with my friends here who are about to be on a panel with me, but I wanted to share with all of you the good news that my book is in soft launch mode. What that means is the only people I've really told about this, other than you, is my launch team. And my official launch day is Tuesday, July 8th. And so this entire last 2 weeks, now at this point, 10 days, since the 23rd of June, I've been aiming to get reviews on the book, and there are 184 written reviews on the book. My initial goal was 200 reviews by Tuesday, and I now have moved the goalpost, as one does, and I'm looking to have 1,000 reviews by the end of the year because my competitors' books have over 900 reviews, and I want to rank higher than them on the search results page, which is why I'm not done asking for reviews. If you're wondering why I'm talking about reviews, it's in the book. I talk about that in the book. Without any further delay, let me introduce this week's panel. Bringing a book to life is about more than just putting words on a page. It's about shaping your message, amplifying your impact, and finding the right partners to help you along the way. That's exactly why the Biz Book Pub Hub exists. Inside the hub, we've gathered a trusted network of professionals, from ghostwriters and editors to marketing strategists and launch specialists, ready to support entrepreneurs through every phase of their book journey. Whether you're wrestling with your first chapter or planning a powerful book relaunch, we've got tools, insights, and connections to guide you. We also host free virtual networking events designed to help you collaborate with fellow entrepreneurs who get it, because no one writes or markets a book alone. If you want to learn more, visit bizbookpubhub.com and explore how we can support your book and your business. Today, I'm excited to welcome our incredible authors who've each approached authorship in their own bold, meaningful way. With me, I have Barrie Atkin, who wrote Hate Fundraising: How to Become Comfortable Asking for Money, a candid and empowering guide that helps nonprofit leaders and volunteers shift their mindset and discover approachable, even, dare I say, enjoyable ways to raise money with confidence. Laura Ballerini wrote The Green Velvet Chair: Sometimes inspiration comes from the most unlikely places, a charming and reflective collection of essays that uncovers beauty in the everyday, reminding us that creativity doesn't just live in galleries, it's everywhere, waiting to be noticed. Please join me in welcoming Barrie and Laura. Barrie, I want to come over to you. Welcome to the show. I'd love to get a little more context about the book and who you wrote it for. Give us a sense of who are you saving from the woes of fundraising. Thanks, Barrie.
Thanks, Robbie, for inviting me. Well, you actually hit the nail on the head. It is for nonprofit leaders, executive directors, board members, volunteers, anyone involved with a nonprofit or a municipal organization, such as a school, a parent-teacher group, that is required or encouraged or would like to be involved in fundraising, or are being asked to be involved in fundraising, even if they don't want to be, especially if they don't want to be, if they hate fundraising.
I was thinking about all the people who get voluntold to to
I like that
fundraise.
phrase.
Voluntold. They're like, oh, okay, got to do this thing. Well, Barrie, you and I have had many a conversation about your book. I helped you with your launch, and I have a background in fundraising and taught people how to get past fear of asking many years ago, which really, I think, prepared me as an entrepreneur to also do sales. But man, it's a skill. I'm so grateful that folks like you have created resources like this book, because there are a lot of good causes in the world that need more funding. And so I was really thrilled to invite you to be on the show so we can highlight some of that for folks. Laura, let me come over to you. I'd love to hear more about your book, which also we need, because I think we need to see more beauty in the world, and sometimes we miss it. So tell us a little bit more about who you had in mind as an audience for your book.
Yeah, so my book is about kind of recognizing creativity in everyday life. I'm a designer, so it's really about art and design in everyday life. Initially, it's interesting. I initially had a target audience of career women about my age, mothers, maybe grandmothers. And my ideal audience was really sitting at a kitchen table with a cup of coffee or a glass of Prosecco and telling the stories. So it's interesting because that was a very detailed target audience. And then I found that even yesterday, I got a kind of a testimonial from a young fellow less than 30 years old, athlete. And he's going, Laura, I love your book. It's fun. It's fun to read. So some of the stories are sad. Some of the stories are, hopefully funny. But I was kind of really impressed that he found joy in my book. So, who knows who the audience is. It varies, I guess.
I love that you had a really specific, clear reader in mind when you're developing a book, and that it also has more of an expansive reach than that, because I think both can be true. But it really helps when you're developing a book to have that particular reader in mind, down to the glass of Prosecco, right? Like just really understanding who they are. And a lot of us often write a book that we wish existed. So what was the experience like for you creating this piece of content? You have the design background. What was the sort of initiative to do something? I mean, this is your first book, am I correct?
Yes, it's my first
Yeah.
book.
So like, yeah, how did you get out of your own way and do this? The voices that are in our heads that hold us back, but you created this book.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm an introvert. I'm quite a quiet person. And a couple of years ago, I took a workshop on how to tell stories because I wanted to be more articulate, kind of be a bit more vocal. And it really helped me. And I realized, I have stories to tell. And people seem to find my stories quite interesting. And they're universal stories about life and design, but it kind of helped me find my voice. So that's kind of where it came. It wasn't on my radar to write a book. It just really evolved quite naturally. But I found my voice in story.
I think it's a really compelling case because a lot of us get that initial oomph to do it, but then peter out. So I just want to follow up one more time because it is kind of incredible that you pulled this off. What's the early reception been like?
It's been really good. And it's been actually really good with that initial target audience. Obviously my network, I have a lot of networks of women, working women, career women, mothers, grandmothers. So I found the reception of the book was really good with that. People were going, I get it. I get when you talk about your granddaughter. I get when you talk about making Easter eggs with your mother. So it's stories about growing up in a family, and it's stories about being a mother or perhaps a grandmother, and writing eulogies, designing a eulogy. So it's everything from that to sewing Barbie doll clothes, but it's stuff that people can relate to. And I think there's also metaphors here that it's about vision, and there's stories about branding. So yes, I might be talking about whatever, my high school reunion, but there's a backstory there about personal brand, right? So there's metaphors in here that relate to business. I've been in business for 26 years. So this isn't just hopefully a light story of short stories about art and design. I think there's a lot of background here in how this relates to business.
We're going to unpack that business connection a little bit later, but I want to come back to you, Barrie. Barrie, this is not your first book, not your first rodeo, but is very tied into the work that you do. How did you decide to write a book? Like how did you decide this is the book, this is the time to get this done?
This is a book I actually started writing, or thought I was writing, in 2015, 10 years ago, shocking, and wrote some content, set it aside, kept coming back to it, set it aside, and then finally was in a workshop that inspired me to get it done. And so I did. And I had a lot more content than I expected. And it was really fun putting it together. And what I did was I had given workshops over the years, helping groups and nonprofit organizations and boards overcome their fear of fundraising. And I'd collected something like 35 reasons people dislike asking for money or feel they hate fundraising. And what I did was I grouped those reasons into 6 categories and then provide solutions for each. And that's unique because what I noticed among all the competitors was they're writing about fundraising, why fundraising is important, how to fundraise. I have some of that in my book. It's inevitable. But my focus is on helping you overcome the fears, the concerns, whether it's 1 reason, 5 reasons, or all 35 reasons.
I love how it's designed, and it's easy. Both your books have this ease of pick it up, put it down, like read the piece that speaks to you. And I think that's helpful. I caution people against writing these like 300, 400 page 6x9 books that are just ginormous. Like break that up to something that's really easy to pick up and put down and absorb. So Barrie, how has your book been received? I mean, has it landed with the audience you were expecting to reach?
It has to some extent. I had some things going on in my life that delayed some of my promotional focus, and I will be doing more promotional focus this summer and fall. I had some really wonderful podcasts, and I have some other articles that are out there about the book. But I'm going to be focusing in the next few months because this is not time limited. And the other thing that's happening with this book is it's really hitting a nerve now when so many nonprofits are faced with cuts to grants, cuts to support, cuts from so many areas. And my focus is on generating donations from individuals, which typically make up about 65 to 70% of donations overall to not-for-profit organizations.
I love this. Again, people just often want something to do. Like, even if you're a person who's not working in a nonprofit, you might feel like, I wish I could do more. You could join a committee. You could host a house party. You could find out like how to support the organization. But I do think people like hold themselves back. And I'm just curious because you now have the experience of selling your own services as well as teaching people fundraising. And so what's the correlation that you see between these two experiences? Like asking, following up, nurturing the relationships. Like, how has that played out for you as a business owner?
Well, I found that what happens is I will be promoting the book, but then I'll have all sorts of other work come in. So this year I had 3 new requests to do strategic planning and branding, which are other areas that I work in, not just fundraising. And so I focused on those. I had a knee replacement, full knee replacement, which took up some time and mental energy. I had a dog with pacemaker surgery. And so all of these things took up time. He's doing well. And I am able to focus on those things. And I'm very happy to be doing what I can do, and because I don't feel like I have to get it out at a certain time. Mm-hmm. But the response I've gotten is, this is needed. This is especially timely.
I love that you're like, and it's weird, I talk about my book about fundraising, and then people hiring for these other things. It's because you're reminding them who you are, just like an organization needs to keep themselves front and center to their donors, similarly. So I think that's great. Laura, I'm curious about the connection back to a business. Like you said you're a designer. It seems like these were stories you really wanted to share, and they're hitting a nerve with people, which is good. You're actually, that in itself is beautiful. But is there a tie back to business, speaking, coaching, consulting, workshops? Like, I don't know. Is there, so thread the needle for me about if someone's excited by this, how does that, like, just like how Barrie got hired for things that were not even exactly related to the book, how is this helping you in your business?
Yeah, so there's stories about vision, resourcefulness, branding, and other metaphors. Some of them are just fun stories about creativity and making Halloween costumes for my husband and I, and my husband, drinking too much and throwing up in my boss's washing machine. So some of them are funny, they're silly, but they're creative, and that's why I included them. But there are some, the Green Velvet Chair, for example, that title came from my mom, who we used to take drives in the country when we were little kids in our station wagon and on a Sunday afternoon, and my dad's driving. We're driving down a country road. My mom sees this old dilapidated chair in a farmer's field. She tells my dad, that's got good bones. Let's stop and look at it. So, of course, my dad rolled his eyes and stopped, and she went up to the farmer's house and asked him if she could purchase that old dilapidated chair in the farmer's field, and he goes, just take it, it's junk. So my dad proceeded to load it up in the back of the station wagon, and all 4 kids were rolling our eyes going, what's mom got now? And we all saw it as a piece of junk. And as the story unfolds, she took an upholstery course. She sanded down the beautiful walnut arms and legs. She transformed it from a piece of junk into this beautiful chair that actually sits in my living room in front of the window. And I kind of get a shiver down my spine when I tell the story. And obviously when I look at the chair, because I'm like, she had a vision that we all scoffed at. We didn't believe in her. And now, ever since then, when she started picking something up, it's like we were paying attention, right? Like, what's she going to do with this? What's she going to transform this in? So in that story, it talks about vision. But if you're a business leader, are you sharing the vision? Do your staff, do your people understand your vision, and are they going to help you get there? So it's an indirect story about the power of vision.
I love that. And do you provide services related to that? Do you do workshops or help business leaders think about that?
Yes, we do discovery sessions when we're starting. So I'm a brand champion. I love to develop brand, refresh brand. And we do discovery sessions where we'll do a half day, a full day session facilitated with my associate. And we'll go through that, the vision, the mission. And quite frankly, every company, I believe, should have their vision and their mission statements framed in their boardroom, and everything they discuss and all the goals that they have, they should always be pointing back to our vision and our mission and going, is this congruent with what we're doing as a company? So it's critical.
So interesting, Laura, that this is sort of a roundabout way to get people to pay attention and to engage with you. And I like this example a lot because, I mean, Barrie and I are more in the how-to. Like, these are how my books are like, I have a problem, I solved it, let me teach you, right? Let me at least point out the potholes in the road and get you going on the right track. But I love the idea of storytelling to get people there. And I think that we talk a lot about the importance of stories and how they can highlight a problem. Our brains light up when we hear stories. We think of our own responses to these stories, which is partly why they are more memorable. And it keeps people wanting to talk to you. And so I'm, kind of curious about a time where a conversation about your book kind of weaved over time to them, wanting to do one of those calls with you. Are you seeing that kind of through line? It's sort of this dotted line between the book and the business. Are you seeing people sort of following those breadcrumbs?
I'm seeing them appreciate creativity in everyday life, including business. But yeah, I'm having to connect the dots a little bit like orally when I'm in meetings or a networking group and going, okay, well, this story about the green velvet chair is actually about vision. Mm-hmm. Or this story about high school reunion was really about personal brand. So I do kind of have to explain it and connect the dots a little bit better than what I do. But I have to be fair. When I first wrote the book, they were short stories about me and my life and being a designer. And it was a marketing coach actually a couple of years ago, because I said, how can I weave this better into my work? And she was the one that said, you know what, you have stories here about resourcefulness, about vision, about weave that into the business side. So I have to say it is a little bit backhanded how that all worked. Yeah. So again, it's creative thinking on her part that helped me weave this together. And by the way, this is my second edition. So 3 years ago, I did launch, and that's where I was working with her, and she was helping me with these creative ideas.
This is great. So much more I want to unpack, but let me come back to Barrie. I mean, Barrie, for you, I know we worked really hard on getting the word out. You have a sort of tight-knit network in the area where you live, people who know you. Having a book come out is a great opportunity to re-engage with a lot of folks, kind of remind them, I'm still here, I'm still doing my good work. Like, how's life? How's the wife and kids? How can we talk? So did anything evolve? Like, and all these little conversations, I know I want to acknowledge your life kind of had some detours in the last 6 months. But when we were working together last year and you were really, really engaging with people, was anything surprising even about that experience of having a book and putting it out intentionally into the world in that way?
I was surprised by some of the very authentic, heartfelt comments people made, either to me personally or in their reviews, where they said, this is really good. This was really helpful. I'm going to use this with my board. I'm going to take this to other people. And some of them said, I was so glad you had that chapter on alternatives to asking for money, because some people cannot get beyond, no matter what the solutions are, to the 35, overcoming those 35 reasons. So I have a chapter, Alternatives to Asking for Money, that gives other things people can do to contribute to an organization.
I love this. And now, you're back on track to start doing work again. your focus is back on this. You have this list of people that you initially reached out to. There are the people who did write reviews. There are people who didn't write reviews. There's follow-up to be had. And I love that you signed up for the Kindle Flash sale again, because these Kindle Flash sales is also why, Laura, you're here. These happen 3 times a year. And it's funny, Laura, you just made this point that you have to kind of connect the dots for people. I do too, because on the surface, signing up for the Kindle Flash sale doesn't maybe make sense if you're paying $75 and your book's being sold for 99 cents and you're making 35 cents basically per copy, and you don't actually expect to sell 100 copies. So how do you know, like, what make this make sense, Robbie? And I'm like, so it's like the 1 or 2 or 3 times a year that you actually pay attention to your book, and you use the time leading up to the campaign to lower your price and get your network re-engaged, maybe leading to more reviews, maybe leading to new revenue opportunities or media opportunities. And it's kind of just like a focused time. Laura, this is not your first time going through this. I'm kind of curious, what was your experience? What led you to say yes again? How is this helping you put some energy and time into this book that you've created?
The experience was actually fantastic. My book sales, they spiked in, I think it was in May, right, when we had it. So it was like, oh, this really works. And yes, it's 99 cents. But for me, and being, you know, a designer and kind of understanding the marketing side, it's awareness. And it was also the community that you have built with the other authors. I did not expect that. And it was like I was connecting with these other authors, like through LinkedIn and just having little chats on the side. And it was like, I did not expect that. I didn't expect the camaraderie with authors supporting authors. It blew my mind. And it really kind of sends a shiver down my spine once again, because I thought it was fantastic.
I love that you brought up the author community. It's been this lovely byproduct of all this work I've been doing, creating the Biz Book Pub Hub, creating these Kindle Flash sales. You know, initially you think of the hub, it's like, oh, it's a bunch of experts that are in this curated directory. Not really. Like, the heart of it is actually the writers and authors that keep showing up to our events, that sign up for these Kindle Flash sale campaigns, because they're the ones who are being really collaborative and supportive. And I think if you want to have new innovative ways to market a book or get your message out, or you got to get over the nerves about writing your book, hang out with authors, hang out with a community of people who are doing the work you're trying to do in the world. I love that for you. And I welcome you back. I love that we get to have different iterations of authors in these panels, because always different stories, different focus somehow comes out of it. Barrie, you know, having a chance to be part of this Kindle Flash sale again, it seems like is good timing, because you're like, I'm back. Let's do this.
Yes. In fact, I was going to add in, one of the reasons that I'm really excited about participating in this one is the timing is good when I'm relaunching my book, promoting it, and want to connect. And what it does is it gives me a specific time frame to send out a newsletter to my list, to send out notes to people, to reach out, as Robbie said, to people who've written reviews in the past and others who haven't, and to reach out to other people that I think will want to know about this book.
Yeah, I think in our day-to-day work, you know, we're busy serving clients, but this is I have an analogy. I'm going to try it out here. This is a new analogy. It's not in my latest book. So my latest book is Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews That Drive Revenue. So here's my analogy. Your book, when it's finished, is a brick. What a lot of authors do is they put the brick on the ground and they stand on it, and they're all proud of themselves. They feel a little taller. They're like, look at me. It's a little nice from up here. Look what I accomplished. Woohoo. But eventually they just step off the brick and get back to life. The brick's just sitting there. And what I want authors to do is take that brick and turn it vertically and use it to prop open a door between them and a prospect, or between them and a referral partner. And at first, it'll only be the width of the brick is how much space you have. But every conversation you have, especially during a launch sequence, right, or even these moments between the few weeks before each of these campaigns, the Kindle Flash sales, is an opportunity to have back and forth conversation, and the door keeps getting propped further and further open until there's no barrier, and you're just invited by that prospect or referral partner to come in, cross the threshold. And that way your book is actually serving your business. It's not just a nice thing that's sitting on the ground that you can be like, I did a thing once. it's something that's continuing to be an asset. And sometimes we have to be a little creative. Like Laura, I think you have to be a little creative about the meaning of these stories and how it ties back to the work that you do. I love that you hired a professional marketer to help you frame that you worked on a second edition to tie it even more closely. And I love, Barrie, that you were like, well, I got sidetracked, but I'm gonna use this to get back in and back focus a little bit. And actually, I want to thank Barrie for her. We got to experiment on how to get her book out, and we got it out there. It's hard to get reviews, and I'm curious. I'll talk about your numbers in a second, but Barrie, I'm curious about your experience with the launch sequence that we did. I was, helping you do that, but it was your network that was responding, and I love the reviews that they gave you. But what was it like to set an intention? And how is it different from how you maybe launched your other books or didn't launch your other books?
Well, one of my books I've written was actually through 2 national trade associations. And so it was for their memberships. So I didn't have to do any real marketing of those. My other, which was a marketing book for senior centers. And my other book is Hate Football, How to Become Fun Facts to Help You Be Part of the Crowd, which is really how to become comfortable with football if you're not. And Laura, I'd love to talk with you about partnering to your audience around that. And so that book came out at the wrong time. This year, my expanded edition is going to come out at the right time. And I'll have plenty of time to promote it in advance. So my goal is to bring it out in September and promote it September, October, November, December, January.
That's smart. So timing of this also is important. You have 36 global ratings on hate fundraising, and 30 of those 36 wrote a review. Anytime people get over 20 reviews, I know that they had to put a really intentional process in place. What's amazing is the number of people in your launch team wasn't hundreds and hundreds. It was dozens and dozens. And so about half your launch team did it. Like that's the number I always think about, because you can start with hundreds and hundreds of people and still only end up with 30. You know what I mean? Like about 1 in 10 will actually follow through. So you can ask 300 people passively and get about maybe 20, 30. But to get over 20 often requires a lot more focus than that. And I like that you're going to have a plan for this new book coming out. Laura, any thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Barrie.
The other thing is that hate fundraising is fairly niche.
Yes.
Not everybody has any interest in fundraising, and many people who have interest in fundraising think they already know it all, and they may, or if they really don't like fundraising, they don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have anything to do with it. So it's kind of like something I have to get to people through circuitous routes.
Yeah, it helped them realize that it's a resource that would benefit them, even if they were like, oh, I really don't want to know anything about this. But
nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to buy hate fundraising.
No, they probably get voluntold to help with their kids' something or other committee at their school. And they're like, oh, I've never really known how to do this. I guess I have to do this now. Right. So it's like I think that PTA crowd could actually be a really good one, because they're like finding themselves in a role where they'd like to do more, but they don't really feel like they have the skill set to do it. In fact, marketing our books and finding our audiences, this is an ongoing kind of experiment for all of us, is trying to figure out who those groups are. Laura, where have you found your most effective strategy is for getting your book, paid or not, into the hands of the people who you think are going to appreciate it the most?
Well, I have to give credit to you, Robbie, because I didn't have a launch team. I didn't have a launch strategy. I thought the hardest part was writing the book. And now I've realized that was the easy part. The hard part is marketing the book. And I'm not a marketer, but I'm in the marketing realm. And I didn't think I didn't know about a launch team. I didn't know about a launch strategy. I learned so much from you from the last 99-cent Kindle promo. And it was like, oh, I need to actually enlist people, and I need to ask them to spend 99 cents, which I kind of had a problem with. And then you had said, well, people want to help. people really want to see people succeed. So I'm getting a little more braver. I'm hoping this next one, I'm going to actually ask people to spend 99 cents on my book and write a review, because I haven't worked on reviews. I didn't realize how critical they are. So I have learned so much from the last Kindle sale that I'm hopefully going to try and put a lot of this into practice now.
I do feel like I'm a little sneaky because I'm basically giving professional development to authors who sign up for the Kindle flash sale. I'm like, okay, you want to market your book? Let's talk about how to actually market your book. Barrie, I actually feel like you rewriting your 36 challenges for authors, because there's such a similarity. This is what I've learned. It's just a similarity when like someone's reluctant to speak up about the value of the thing they have. So my background in fundraising, I didn't realize it was readying me to be an entrepreneur. But my joke is I've gotten people to give me money for nothing but goodwill. So I'm pretty sure I can get them to buy this book, but it's like, you have to I always said, don't fundraise for a cause that you're not willing to give your own dollars to, because if you have questions about this organization, no, I would not fundraise for that organization. Similarly, write a really good book. Write a really good book that's valuable and has a really particular audience, and that will help you align your energy behind talking about it. And if we make it about ourselves, then we're actually just doing a disservice to the people who best benefit, because then we're focusing on our own discomfort, not on the people who need access to this resource, whatever it might be, or the inspiration or the resource or the next step that they don't even know they need. So it is really kind of tricky, I think, for a lot of newer authors to wrap their heads around that. So I'm glad you're getting a chance to try that out in these different spaces. And for you, Barrie, what was your most effective way to get your book into the right hands? Are you connecting with associations or organizations, like, whether it's bulk sales or giving away your book? Like, what are the ways you find that people are getting to the book?
I've done some giveaways, done some podcasts, and I'm reaching out to lots of trade association of not-for-profits.
Nice.
Groups. And then I'm also expanding my network. And I'm also emphasizing that what you just said, Robbie, this sense of you don't want to focus on trying to fundraise for a cause you don't care about. And that's one of the 6 big categories in my book, the discomfort with the cause or organization. So I'm trying to get not-for-profits to say, yes, this is what we want in our fundraisers, and here's how I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Here's how the book helps.
I'm thinking actually of the committees that I run around gala dinners, or other the kind of committees where there wasn't an expectation that they were going to do some fundraising, and often those committees were pipelines to being a board member. So some of the best committee members who ended up actually doing the fundraising within a couple of years became board members. And I actually can think of one that went from a committee member when I was there to the board to being board president. So I'm sure that it was my ask that got him on the committee, right? And then that whole trajectory. But you've got to find people and give them a way in. And I think those are the folks that they have a reason they say yes, but then they don't always know what to do once they get into those roles. So yeah, you're back in my head. I'm going to keep thinking about who I know that I can introduce you to.
That'd be fabulous. And we talked recently and you gave me some great suggestions. Thank you.
And you also mentioned a couple of podcast things that are coming up for you. So how are you coming across those shows? What kind of shows are you getting booked on? What's your strategy been around that?
That's been either asking people if they know of podcasts that would be of interest, or simply searching on Google for podcasts around fundraising. And there are lots of them.
There are. That's great. So, one resource that I've suggested to people is something called listennotes.com. And there's a free search, and then there's a low cost, I think, to pull data down as a spreadsheet. But listennotes.com, we'll put a link in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. So if you're driving, you just go there later and find that. But it's handy. And if you can find a doppelganger, I call this your marketing doppelganger. So if you can find someone who's just a little further ahead as far as the podcast circuit, and they've been on a bunch of shows on your topic or something adjacent to your topic, then you'll be able to quickly find shows that have guests that are current and that might be relevant to you, and that could help narrow the field a little bit, especially when there's so many great shows out there. I'd love to come to Laura. I have this question I like to ask. It's where you fill in the blank. The phrase is, because I'm an author. So how would you answer that? Because I'm an author, like, are there any doors that have opened for you?
Definitely. I've learned the power of storytelling, and it's not necessarily a personal story. It's seeing those story moments in business, and people can relate to a story. You guys talked about that earlier. We can relate to a story, whereas a mission statement can be kind of boring and dry. But if you tell me a story about why this is your mission, it makes it more tangible, more emotional, and people react to that emotional side. So I think it's critical. Storytelling is important in all aspects of life.
That's great. And are you also getting recognition because you have the book on panels, podcasts, invited to speak? Like, sometimes it feels like there's this barrier where you don't get those open invitations. Have you found a shift now that you have a book?
Yes, and I've learned to, like I say, I've found my voice. I've learned to be more confident in what I have to say, and I believe in what I have to say. So I think that comes across better. I had a podcast, was it this week or late last week? And it was great. I met her through I think it was a speakers webinar in the spring. She was great. I think you know her, Virginia Muskies. Sorry, I can spell.
Yeah, love her.
She was great. A lot of energy. So that was fun. And I also found I did an actual physical book launch in a bookstore in Calgary. I'm in Canada. And I found that I didn't practice, but I had an idea of what I wanted to talk about in the book. I didn't read a chapter. I talked about the book. And last week when I was talking to somebody who was at the book launch, she goes, I really resonated with what you said. So I'm finding that people are kind of recalling stuff that I've been said or that I've said. And I find that it's really invigorating, because it's like, oh, maybe there's something here.
I love that you keep unpacking it to find new meaning in the work you've done and find new ways to translate that to what you're doing and what other people need from you. You mentioned that thing about, stories and mission. This is actually something that Barrie and I talked about when we met recently. When I was teaching people fundraising, I had a phrase called "getting past the fear of asking" was the talk that I did. And I would have board members or community members, and I would ask them to talk about a time they saw their mission in action, which is a story. And they would sit there and tell you a whole thing. And I'd say, so why are you worried about fundraising? And they'd be like, well, I'm like, just tell that story. Like, that's great. That's it. That's what was meaningful to you. And somebody will connect to that. Like, that's all you, don't even worry about, like, especially because mostly they're paired with a professional fundraiser to do the close and the money. Like, your job is to tell the story about why this work is so important. And I feel like that's also, as an author, we have to have that compelling story about why our book and our business is so important. I'm business owners in this too. Barrie, I'm still thinking about this talk that we did, clearly. I'd love to hear your answer to this question, because I'm an author. Like, you've now had a few books out. You get a chance to be invited to do certain things. Is there anything that sort of comes to the surface when you think about that answer?
When I first published a book, people were very impressed. Then I published another book. They were impressed. Then I published another book. They were impressed. But it was different groups of people. And so when they say, oh, you wrote this? And when they hear I've published several books, then it's like, wow. But I don't think of myself as an author as much as it's something that supports the work I do.
Mm-hmm. So interesting, because you just keep being compelled to write books, and you've gotten through the mental hurdles about, should I write a book and who am I to write a book? And so you're like, I write a book.
Yeah, I'm writing 2 others at the moment, in addition to coming out with a new expanded version of Hate Football.
I love this. People don't do this. This is not the ordinary response to life. And you should get lauded for your follow through, if nothing else, right? Because a lot of people might talk a good game about what they're going to do. Laura, any other books in the pipeline for you? Are you, now that you've got this response and you've been thinking more about how it fits the business, is there something else that's creeping up your spine you're thinking about in the back of your mind? Or
Possibly. When I first wrote the book 3 years ago, it actually got orphaned. I had a, excuse me, a breast cancer diagnosis. So that's why I've had a 3 year gap. But oddly enough, I'm kind of thinking of writing about my journey through this breast cancer, and it's very positive. It's positive stories. It's the gifts that I found along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm trying to see the creative, the bright side of life, even through a dark time. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people have gone through many different challenges. So I know I'm not unique in any way, shape, or form, but someone did call me a perspective shifter because I have a different way of looking at things.
Nice.
And I think I have a positive way to go, wow, I met so many people through this journey. I met angels along the way, mostly in the healthcare system, that people are always complaining about this and that. And it's like, wow, I have a different perspective, and I want to share that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, maybe a next project. Again, not necessarily business related, but business in seeing, let's look at the other side. Sure, we all have problems. Our businesses, go through ebbs and flows. Let's see how we can switch this. So being that perspective shifter is something that I'm focusing on and probably doing some workshops on in the future.
I could absolutely see you doing workshops on this where you may end up with a whole nother line of work that's adjacent to the work that you're known for now. As a multi-passion entrepreneur, I give you permission. Go for it. I have a very clear person I'm thinking of for each line of work that I have, but I'm no longer tied to just being one thing. And you have expertise, you have a perspective, and I love that you're able to help other people shift their own perspective. And a lot of people are going through challenging times, all kinds. Health is just being one of them. But I think those kinds of works of art can be really helpful right now. Before I move on, Laura, I'm just curious, as you're writing books, and you've been thinking a little more about how the books fit with business. What would you share with a writer who's thinking about writing a book that they do want to have it tied more to the business? Is there something that you're like, oh, if I thought of that in the beginning, like for this new book, I would do this a little bit differently? Like, or any sort of noticings that come up for you?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because when I first actually started coming up with a name for the book, like the Green Velvet Chair, I actually put it out to social and said, this is my synopsis of my book. It's art and design in everyday life. And I came up with titles like From Picas to Pixels, because I started in the newspaper industry. So we used picas as a unit of measure. Then I became a web designer. So obviously that was pixels. So anyway, I came up with names like that, and people go, that's not congruent with your stories. This is not a book about art and design. I could have done a book on how to design logos, but there's so many books like that out there. I chose to take a different, again, perspective of what does art and design mean in everyday life, and trying to see that creative side from a business side. So yes, it's a little bit more off the cuff in a way, that it's not a business book per se, but I think if you read it with a fresh perspective, I think you can see the business metaphors within it.
Well, I think that you're giving people permission to do more of a narrative nonfiction, which is not memoir, not a how-to book, but it's where you're a little more, like you're telling people that story you just read, this is the takeaway. You read another story, let me ask you some questions about it to get you thinking. So it's combining stories with reflective questions that kind of make it a little more interactive. I didn't know the term narrative nonfiction until I got more into the world of books. And I find it's just really interesting because I don't include memoirs in my Kindle flash sales, but I do include this idea of narrative nonfiction. And your book is straddling that line. It's about people who are writing books that they want to attract, speaking opportunities or coaching or consulting. And so it's very interesting to think about how to be more intentional at the start of a book project to know what your end result is that you're hoping for, and then measure your success based on that, not anything else, because people will always come up with like other metrics that you should have had, and you're like, oh, okay, but I wasn't planning to do that. So don't pay no mind to those people. Barrie, what about you? Any advice you'd give someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business?
I like your idea of knowing in advance what your goal is, but don't be afraid to take a tangent if some interesting tangents come along.
Mm-hmm.
And if your issue is sitting down to actually write, then put it on your calendar and do that. Doesn't have to take a long time to write a book, but it
Right.
can.
It can. I love that you're giving people the like initiative to do it, because I think we can get a little bit stuck with finding the time, prioritizing the time. So there is definitely that. Barrie, how can people find you and follow your work?
BarrieAtkin.com is my website. BarrieAtkin.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me by Googling me, and you'll get lots of references to things I've done, probably some that I haven't.
We'll put all the links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Laura.
And go to amazon.com and look for Hate Fundraising.
Oh, we're going to have that link there as well. We're going to put your...
Become Comfortable Asking for Money, or any of my other books. Follow me on Amazon.
Fantastic. We're going to put all the links, including your book title, in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Laura, how about you? How can people find you and follow your work?
Well, I have two websites. Can I give both of those?
Sure, yeah.
So my corporate site is bluebrown.com, no E in blue. And I named it after my two daughters. One has blue eyes, one has brown eyes. The idea being looking through the eyes of a child, always asking why. So Blue Brown Communications is my design boutique. And I have an unlikely name for my author site. I hope I can say the word. It's Badass Ballerini, which is very unlikely. But when I first started writing my story, somebody said, "Laura, you're badass." So I thought, oh, I'm gonna get that URL and go from there. So it's an unlikely name, but it's badass-ballerini.com, and that's my author site.
Fantastic. We're going to put all these links, your social links, your book links, your website links, all at bizbookpubhub.com, which is where you'll find all the show notes for all the episodes we release every Tuesday and Thursday. So much great information, stories, the actionable takeaways, the inspiration. I love these spaces that we create. You also get an invitation to attend our free virtual networking events that we host every single month. You'll get access to a curated directory of experts who help entrepreneurs write, edit, publish, and market their books. And you'll get invited to either attend or check out our Kindle flash sales, which happen 3 times a year. Probably more things than that. I can never keep track of the whole list, but just go over to bizbookpubhub.com and check it all out. And I want to, again, thank our panel for joining us for this conversation. I just really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.